Hey neighbor, welcome back to Ranked. In this video, I'm going to be ranking every studio album by the hometown-hating rock, metalcore, and pop-punk band A Day to Remember. They formed in the early 2000s and rode the tidal wave of their early fame on sites like MySpace, going on to dominate the 2010s as one of the biggest rock acts of the entire decade. Now that they've got 7 records under their belt, I wanted to rank everything from worst to best. Opinions are opinions, obviously, and I'm just one guy who happens to have been listening to them for a long time, but if you have thoughts on my thoughts or want to share your own, then take to the comments section, and while you're down there, hit that like button, because once this gets to 1,000 likes, I'm going to be doing a top 10 ADTR songs.
It's hard to practice what you preach when life is a beach. I'm hard diving.
What a fucking disaster of an album. The entire process, it was straight from hell, marred by numerous delays, spotty singles, and a total lack of musical direction as evidenced by the final product You're Welcome, which plays like a confused ragdoll. While there is a taste of their heavier material on the likes of Last Chance to Dance and Resentment, you can't put a band-aid on a gushing wound. Glossy pop production sweats off the personality, which sucks. It bums me out because so many of their best records were defined by throat-punching mixes that put you in the eye of the storm, but they just totally jumped the shark this time. You're Welcome plays like a mixtape transaction required by a record label rather than an expression of emotion. Jeremy McKinnon often sounds unrecognizable, like somebody took a Lysol wipe to his charisma, but even worse is the piss-poor lyrics that are basically spoon-fed to the audience, like we're so dumb that we're not gonna taste the difference. We noticed, and the answer now, as it has always been with this record, is no thank you. They just kept digging away at their own grave with these soulless radio-friendly choruses and plastic instrumentation. Even the best moments aren't even really worth getting excited about. It's more just like a momentary sigh of relief that the bleeding stopped. Looks Like Hell tries a cool groove I wish they would have explored more. Mind Reader is slightly less annoying over time, and Resentment bangs with a pretty catchy riff, but if this were a car crash, the insurance company would call it a total loss. Bag it and tag it, try again next time.
Writings on the wall, you've read it, I'll be gone, but if you call my name.
For a debut album recorded on a minuscule budget over 3 days in 2005, not bad. I mean, it sounds dated as hell, and there's some very obvious power lacking in the sound, but I still can't at all roast this in the way that I would some debut albums from bands that went on to be great. The vocals are questionable for sure, and Jeremy obviously made a ton of adjustments to become a better singer, but you gotta give him credit for putting it all out there in such an unfiltered manner. I can see signs of what's to come hiding in the bones of And Their Name Was Treason. Houses don't get built overnight unless you're on Extreme Makeover Home Edition and want the house to fall apart the next week. But if you're just starting out as a band, you gotta start somewhere, and A Day to Remember's debut laid down a solid roadmap for the blend of genres they'd perfect in the next decade. The use of audio samples from movies clutters up the flow of the album, almost like they were a last-minute addition, which wouldn't really surprise me since they did record the damn thing in 3 days. If you're looking for finesse, this ain't that, but I'd still recommend to listen just to see their roots. This is a band carving out who they are, balancing the heaviest gauntlets you shoulda killed me when you had the chance with the acoustic nature of You Had Me at Hello. It's far from perfect, but it's definitely trying, and that counts for something. There's nothing inherently wrong with searching for new sounds. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's good to keep pushing yourself regardless of what level of success you've seen, and Bad Vibrations feels like a band taking off in search of a slightly updated identity, at times going heavier than ever before, but also flirting with the likes of punk rock, pop, and a cocktail of everything that they've done up through 2016. This album didn't leave a huge impact on me, but it wasn't totally forgettable either. It's the type of record that you come crawling back to when you're in a very specific mood. So even if it's not in your constant rotation, it's hard to call it anything close to bad, maybe just a little bit too inconsistent for its own good. Menacing energy surrounds the curb stomper Exposed, while the title track opts to let frustrated anger take the wheel to really cathartic results. Those stand tall as some of the album's bulletproof bangers, alongside the blistering sincerity of Justified, and even the sucker punch Turn Off the Radio that flies a flag for those trying to shut out the noise of negativity. All in all, Bad Vibrations is likable, determined, but incomplete. I wish the bonus tracks Negative Space and In Florida had made the standard cut since they're leagues better than the album's weakest tracks, but even still, I'd take this any day over the No Thank You that came next.
You killed what was left of the good in me. I'm tired, so let me be broken.
ADTR were blowing up in the late 2000s, culminating in a fast follow-up to their most successful album just a year after its release. And therein lies both the beauty and the slight problem with what separates me from you. Victory Records turned out to be major shitheads, as we probably all know now, but at the time, the band were fighting the puppet strings behind the scenes, and to me, that makes this 2010 album that much more surprising. This album is generally really good, with a few relatively minor snafus, but to be dealing with all of that pressure from the label and to have this rapidly growing fan base to please, they found a way to kill it and gave a home to some of their most legendary songs that went on to become a staple for their setlist. At 33 minutes, it's hard to separate yourself from playing the whole thing once you've started Sticks and Bricks. There's such an animalistic spirit to that opener, perpetuated by some chunky-ass riffs, and a chorus that just won't quit being ridiculously catchy. Anthemic belters come out in full force on album 4, rarely laying off the gas because really, how could they? 10 songs in 33 minutes doesn't leave any room for filler, and credit where it's due, they trimmed the fat and handed down a final product that satisfies the craving for their trademark blend of metalcore and pop punk. I like that they generally stuck with the same producers, namely Chad Gilbert, who was closely attached to Homesick, and that they kept a heavy sound with relatable lyrics, some of them being among their best ever, as evidenced by the pummeling You Be Tails, I'll Be Sonic, and the crossover success that All I Want wore on its tattered sleeve beautifully.
So don't punish me. I got nothing to lose. So weak, they won't even miss you at all.
Killer combinations of top-notch metalcore production and borderline pop-punk meets easycore hooks lifted Homesick's sail as A Day to Remember had a year they'd never forget. Turbulence rocks the boat, parts the sea, and walks on water all in 40 jam-packed minutes. It's definitely not a perfect album, but it's objectively one of their supreme releases that stood the test of time with more relentless heaters than you can count on one hand. Cutting ties, drowning out deep-seated insecurity, and making peace with the past are some of the biggest recurring themes they paint in an unmistakable blood. This era focused on learning to cope with the cards they were dealt, including the taste of fame that was realistically only just beginning to rain down. They cemented themselves as kings of the breakdown, topping off the record with the spirals of You Already Know What You Are and the flamethrower The Downfall of Us All, the latter of those actually being my introduction to the band, and I still lose my shit every time I hear the track. It's ridiculously good, and not just that one, Mr. Highway, I'm Made of Wax Larry, If It Means a Lot to You, those all really get the blood pumping, and I could probably go on, but I think you get the point. Hyping up the crowd at the show or at home is what A Day to Remember do best, and they do it all without missing a beat, and it's plastered all over this landmark album. Even when they're laying it on a bit thick with the shouty vocals or just the cheesy writing, it's impossible to hate, and I totally get why so many people list it as their favorite.
I saw this way from the start. I don't remember what's taken down. All I use is shot in the dark. Yes, I never can know me.
The leap in quality from Treason to For Those Who Have Heart is insane. It reminds me of what happened to Avenged Sevenfold between sounding the seventh trumpet and Waking the Fallen. Jeremy McKinnon sounds like a new man as he holds it down as the captain of the ship, knocking his former self out of the ring without mocking the road that led him there. Growled vocals make prominent appearances throughout, so it's not like everything about the band changed overnight. It's the production quality, the musicianship, and to be honest, it's mainly the songwriting that really puts this one a cut above. Scowling guitars conjure up a fury of memorable riffs, putting the boys on the map as you could hear the Future screaming back loudly on the plot to bomb the Panhandle, and their now iconic cover of Kelly Clarkson's Since You've Been Gone that still serves as the pinnacle for what rock covers of pop songs should be. Flow was also a crucial element that played into this album's success. To be able to roll from the headbanging monument into the piano-driven price we pay, it just wouldn't sound natural without a smooth transition, but they give us exactly that, and it's why I always felt strongly about them being leaders in the scene, kinda like a peacock that is never afraid to show a new color. Mark their words, they're taking over the world, and they're doing it with towering breakdowns, hammerhead drumming, diverse musicality, and enough angst to turn a Walmart parking lot into a mosh pit. Victory Records was a major villain at this point in A Day to Remember's story, as they bogged them down with lawsuits, court battles, subpoenas, and just legal battle after legal battle. But our heroes came out on top in this story, and I think that's what motivated A Day to Remember to create their best album, Common Courtesy. Chef's Kiss feels like a proper way to sum it up, throttling with a longer than usual runtime, but never ever dropping the ball. It's brilliantly laid out, with the song structures complementing the band's writing as they take a victory lap, pun absolutely intended, and celebrate their newfound independence. To knock down walls without trapping yourself under the weight of the blueprint, that's the tricky maneuver only the pros can pull off, and it's also the same reason that you don't just see anybody out in the streets operating a wrecking ball. Life temporarily stalled out during their legal nightmares, but the band never stopped writing and pushing during the time away, meaning they were that much hungrier to prove themselves again. They didn't need a label, they didn't need the promo, they knew what made them special, and their hunger paid off with a feast for the ears. LP5 has a glowing sense of pristine buried in its bones. None of their other projects checked every box the way Common Courtesy does, boiling it down to the basics on the back-to-back opening knockout City of Ocala into Right Back at It Again, only to subvert expectations with some treacherous off-roading on The Document Speaks for Itself, and the face melters Sometimes You're the Hammer, Sometimes You're the Nail. Acoustic-fueled moments I'm Already Gone and I Surrender serve as the backbone of everything. I don't necessarily know if they get enough credit, because these are the tracks that split up any sense of monotony that maybe, just maybe, started to creep in, but they're also able to parlay the play from soft to heavy without even blinking twice, because at this point it came to them so naturally. Common Courtesy is A Day to Remember. It's a band at their peak, and if they top it, my jaw would be on the floor, since really, it's a perfect storm. It's a band that had just gotten free from their contract. They were angry, they were happy, they were a mixture of emotions, and it's really probably a perfect storm that could only come once in a lifetime. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Ranked. Please don't forget to hit that like button, because at 1,000 likes, I'm going to be doing a top 10 A Day to Remember songs. If you want to, leave your own ranking of their albums in the comments section, and of course, remember, this is all just my opinion. If you want to see another A Day to Remember video I did, then tap here, or tap here for another episode of Ranked. I'll be back soon with more on ARTV.